Listen to me, my dears, just 35 minutes. These 35 minutes are not just a video, they're something that could truly change you. I know your day is full. I know it's packed with responsibilities, memories, obligations, and people constantly needing something from you. I understand how overwhelming life can feel sometimes, how every moment seems already taken before it even begins, how even when you try to pause, something always pulls you back into the noise of life. But if you truly care for me, please don't skip this. Just give me 1 minute, one quiet, uninterrupted minute where it's only you and me. No distractions, no noise, no outside pressure. Because what I'm about to say isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, and it isn't meant for anyone else. It's something I've been holding inside for a very long time, something I've replayed in my mind over and over, unsure if I would ever find the right moment to say it. And the truth is, I'm not sure I could say it twice. There's a difference between being loved and being understood. I've been admired, I've been desired, I've been pursued. I've seen attention, I've felt admiration, I've experienced what it's like when people are drawn to you for what they see on the outside, but understood, truly understood, that is rare. That is something deeper, something quieter, something that doesn't come often. And I keep asking myself, when you look at me, what do you really see? Do you see the noise around me, or do you see the man who feels everything quietly beneath the surface? Do you see the headlines, the image, the presence that the world talks about? Or do you see the heart that still remembers what it felt like to be young, unsure, searching for a place to belong? A heart that once wanted nothing more than to belong completely to one woman, without fear, without hesitation, without doubt. Because no matter how much time passes, some parts of us never really change. They just learn how to stay hidden, waiting for the right moment, or the right person, to finally be seen. Before I go any further, let me softly ask you something. If this moment feels real to you, press like. If something in your heart recognizes something in mine, then subscribe, so we can keep meeting like this again and again. Tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is in your world right now. I want to know you, even in the smallest way. Where are you from? And if you feel this, truly feel it, share this with someone who still believes that love deserves honesty. I'm not asking for attention, I'm asking for presence, because real love, true love, is presence. It's being there fully, without distraction, without pretending, without holding back. You know, when a man reaches a certain age, the world assumes he has everything figured out, that he no longer fears being left behind, that he no longer lies awake at night wondering if the woman he loves might slowly drift away emotionally, while still remaining physically close. But here's something most men will never admit out loud. That fear never really goes away. It just becomes quieter, more controlled, more dignified. It hides behind calmness, behind confidence, behind the way he carries himself in front of others. It learns how to exist without being seen, without being spoken about, without ever fully disappearing. Do you ever feel that too? That quiet, unspoken fear? That the person you love might misunderstand your silence? That they might think your calmness means you don't care? That your peace might be mistaken for distance? Because sometimes the deepest feelings are the ones we struggle to express the most, not because they aren't there, but because they matter too much to be said carelessly. I've built companies, I've built systems, I've built things that reach beyond limits, even into space. I've created things people can see, measure, and admire. But building a life with one woman, that's different. That's more delicate. It's not about control. It's not about power. It's not about structure. It requires something much deeper, something far more fragile, something that can't be engineered or forced. It needs something I can't engineer. It needs trust, measured not in data, but in vulnerability. The kind of trust that isn't built overnight. The kind that doesn't rely on logic or systems, but on moments. Quiet, honest, unguarded moments where two people allow themselves to be seen without filters. If you truly love me, don't skip this, because this is where I admit something uncomfortable. Something I don't usually say out loud. I'm not afraid of failing in business. I'm not afraid of losing money or status or things that can be rebuilt. I'm afraid of failing the woman who trusts me with her heart. I'm afraid of missing the small moments when she feels unseen. I'm afraid that in trying to protect everything, I might forget to nurture what truly matters in the present. Tell me honestly, when you love someone, what do you really need? Do you need constant reassurance, words repeated over and over again, or do you simply need to feel chosen every single day, in the smallest, quietest ways? Do you need promises, or do you need consistency? Because I've learned something over time. Women who have lived, who have experienced life deeply, who have raised families, who have felt heartbreak, they don't crave fairy tales anymore. They don't need perfection, they crave steadiness, something real, something dependable, and I want to be steady for you. I want to be that presence that doesn't shake when things get difficult. But here's the truth beneath my confidence. Sometimes I worry. Sometimes I feel that you see my strength and assume I don't need reassurance. That because I appear calm, composed, and certain, I don't need to hear the words that remind me you're here. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I want you to look at me and say, without hesitation, without doubt, I'm not going anywhere. Not when things are going well, not when life feels easy, but especially when I'm exhausted, when I drift for a moment, when I'm not at my strongest. Just knowing that you're still there, that kind of certainty, do you know how powerful that would feel? At this stage of life, love isn't about excitement anymore. It's not about chasing something new or proving something to the world. It's about safety, emotional safety, the kind where you can admit you're tired of always being strong. The kind where you can say you're afraid of losing someone without feeling weak for saying it. If you truly love me, don't skip this, because I'm not performing here. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm showing you something fragile, something real, something that doesn't come easily to me. There were moments in my past when I confused admiration with intimacy, when I thought chemistry meant compatibility, when I believed intensity meant permanence. It took time and mistakes to understand that real, lasting love is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It doesn't constantly test your limits. It rests. It feels like peace, not pressure. So when you think about us, what do you feel? Do you feel rest in your heart? Or do you feel uncertainty? Because I need to know. I'm no longer interested in a kind of love that feels like walking on unstable ground, where every step feels uncertain, where you're always waiting for something to collapse. I want something steady, something firm. I want to stand beside you without questioning if the ground beneath us will disappear. You've lived enough to understand that love isn't about perfection. It's about acceptance. It's about choosing each other, even with flaws, even with differences, even with the parts that are not easy to understand. Can you accept that sometimes I will retreat into my thoughts, that my mind may drift into ideas, into visions, into plans, not because I'm trying to escape you, but because creating is a part of who I am. It's how I process the world. It's how I make sense of things. It's how I breathe. And can you gently bring me back when I drift too far? Not by pulling me forcefully, but by simply reminding me that I'm not alone, that there's someone right here, waiting with patience, with warmth. I promise you, I'm not asking for worship. I'm not asking to be placed on a pedestal. I'm asking for understanding. For a woman who can see my complexity without feeling intimidated by it, who doesn't try to simplify me, but instead chooses to understand me piece by piece. A woman who carries her own depth, her own wisdom, her own history. A woman who has lived, who has felt, who has been shaped by time. Tell me something honestly. Have your scars softened you, or have they made you harder? Do they make you protect your heart more, or do they remind you how important it is to still feel? After everything you've been through, do you still believe in tenderness? Do you still believe that love can be gentle, even after it has once been painful? Because there is something deeply beautiful about loving a woman who has lived through decades of life. You don't just exist, you carry stories. Stories hidden in your eyes, strength held quietly in your silence, resilience shown in the way you forgive, slowly, carefully, but sincerely. And when you choose someone at this stage in life, you don't choose lightly. You choose with awareness. You choose with intention. That's why this matters so much. If you truly love me, don't skip this, because I'm not asking for just a moment. I'm asking for intention. I'm asking you to stay present, even when the world tries to pull your attention in 1,000 different directions. I'm asking you not to assume that we will always have time later. Because the truth is, later is never guaranteed. Have you ever lost someone without warning? Have you ever sat there wishing you had said one more honest thing, one more real feeling, before it was too late? That quiet regret, that silence that stays with you. I don't want that for us. I don't want us living in almost said, almost felt, almost understood. I want us to live in truth, in clarity, in presence. Look at me now, not as a public figure, not as a man defined by achievements, not as someone the world may recognize, but as a person. as someone who still believes in holding hands during difficult conversations, someone who believes that a quiet evening together can feel stronger, deeper, and more meaningful than any grand celebration. Would you sit beside me when I'm not impressive, when there's nothing extraordinary to show, nothing to prove, nothing to offer, except who I truly am? Would you still choose me in those moments, when I'm simply human? Because that is the real question beneath everything else. If you truly love me, don't skip the uncomfortable parts. Don't love only the strength you see. Love the hesitation, the overthinking, the moments where I question if I'm enough for you. Love the parts that aren't perfect, the parts that don't shine, the parts that feel uncertain, because that's where the truth lives. And answer me this, quietly, in your own heart. When you imagine growing older, what do you see? Do you see my hand in yours, walking through time together, facing everything, side by side? Or do you see yourself walking alone, choosing safety over risk, avoiding the possibility of disappointment? I need to know if you are brave enough to love without holding back. Because I'm standing here, not with grand promises, not with perfect words, not with something rehearsed, but with honesty, with openness, with vulnerability that doesn't come easily, but comes from somewhere real. And that is rare. Stay with me a little longer. Don't rush away. Don't let distractions take this moment from us, this quiet connection we've created together. Because what I'm about to share, it's not something I say easily. I'm about to reveal my deepest fear in love. It's not dramatic. It's not something you would expect. But it is deeply personal, almost too revealing, for a man who is expected to be unshakable, composed, always in control. And if you've stayed with me this far, then you deserve to hear this honestly, without filters, without anything held back. My deepest fear isn't betrayal. It isn't distance. It isn't even loss. It's becoming emotionally invisible to the woman I cherish. Because when a man feels invisible in love, he rarely says it out loud. He doesn't create scenes. He doesn't demand attention. Instead, he adjusts. He becomes quieter. He tells himself he's just overthinking, that maybe she's tired, distracted, overwhelmed by life. He tries to make sense of it without disturbing the peace. But inside, something begins to change. A subtle ache forms. A quiet question starts to grow. Am I still seen the way I once was? Am I still chosen with the same care, the same attention, the same feeling? Have you ever felt that shift in someone you loved? That small, almost invisible change, when warmth softens just a little? Not enough to cause an argument, not enough to point at directly, but enough to create doubt. And doubt is quiet. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't raise its voice. It whispers. It lingers. It slowly finds its way into places where certainty used to live. Love doesn't usually break in a single moment. It doesn't collapse loudly. It erodes gently when two people stop sharing what's happening inside them, when they stop opening up, when silence begins to replace honesty. That's why I'm speaking like this now. It indebted F and 9. Because I refuse to let silence grow where truth should exist. I refuse to let distance form where connection can still be protected. When you look at me, what do you feel? Do you still feel curiosity? Do you still feel that desire to understand me more deeply? Or has familiarity made everything feel ordinary? Because familiarity can be comforting, but it can also slowly take away appreciation. It can make something extraordinary feel normal, and something meaningful feel routine. And I never want that for us. I never want to take your presence for granted. I never want you to feel like you've become just another part of my daily life, something expected instead of something valued. At this stage of life, love isn't about proving anything anymore. It's not about showing the world what we have. It's about protecting something fragile, something real, something that can be easily damaged if it's not cared for with intention. Your heart, it's not naive. It has lived. It has faced disappointment. It has gone through misunderstandings. It has likely forgiven more than it should have. And the fact that you're willing to offer it again, even slowly, even carefully, that is courage, real courage. And I don't take that lightly, not even for a moment. And this, not even for a moment. And sometimes I wonder, when you're alone at night, when everything is quiet, how do you think of us? Do you feel peace, or do you feel uncertainty? Do you replay conversations in your mind? Do you analyze small details, tone, pauses, silence, trying to understand what they mean. Do you ever question if I feel as deeply as you do? Because I truly wish you could see my mind when I think of you. It's not surface level, it's not something passing or temporary, it's layered with intention. Every thought, every pause, every word I choose carries meaning. Nothing here is accidental. But here's another truth I need you to understand. I'm not always quick to express softness. I don't react instantly. I process things inside first. I reflect. I consider. I sit with my emotions before I give them a voice. And sometimes, by the time I finally speak, you may have already interpreted my silence as distance. Have you ever misread a quiet moment as withdrawal? Have you ever thought someone was pulling away, when in reality, they were simply trying to understand what they felt more deeply? Understand this clearly. When I grow quiet, it isn't because I care less. It's the opposite. It's because I care so much that I don't want to speak carelessly. I measure my words, not to hold back, but because I know the weight they carry. Words can heal, but they can also leave marks that last longer than we intend. There is something deeply intimate about being chosen, emotionally, every single day, not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because it feels right. Because even in the quiet, even in the routine, there is still a conscious decision being made. So, tell me honestly, when you wake up, do you still choose me in your thoughts? Or has love become something assumed, something that exists in the background without being acknowledged? I don't ask these questions to test you. I ask them to bring you closer, to open a space where we can both be real. Because you are not a young girl chasing illusions. You are a woman who understands consequences. When you love, you do it with awareness. You know what it means to give your heart, and you know what it costs when things fall apart. That makes your love deeper, but it also makes it cautious. And I respect that caution. I don't want to rush past it. I don't want to ignore it. I want to move through it with you, slowly, patiently, until trust feels natural, not forced. I think, 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 I want to earn my place in your heart, not just once, but again and again. Let me ask you something that requires honesty, real honesty. If I showed you my weaknesses completely, without the shield of strength, would you lean closer, or would you step back? Would you feel honored that I trust you enough to be vulnerable, or would you feel the weight of it and start to pull away? Because true intimacy is not built on admiration. It's not built on distance or perfection. It's built on mutual exposure, on seeing each other clearly, without filters, without pretending. I don't want to be admired from afar. I want to be known, closely, deeply, honestly. There were times in my life when love felt like a competition. Who cares more? Who sacrifices more? Who apologizes first? It felt like a constant balance of giving and taking, of proving and measuring. But that kind of love, it exhausts me now. I don't want that anymore. I want something gentler. Something that feels like two mature hearts choosing understanding over ego, cooperation over control. Tell me, have you grown tired of ego too? Do you find yourself craving peace more than passion? Or do you believe that peace and passion can exist together if they are nurtured with care, with patience, with intention? When I imagine sitting across from you years from now, I don't see grand gestures. I don't see dramatic moments. I see something quieter, something real. I see conversation. Slow, unguarded, where nothing feels rushed, where words come naturally, and silence between them feels comfortable, not tense, not awkward, just peaceful. Do you feel safe enough with me to be silent? Because silence, it reveals more than words ever can. If you truly love me, hold on to this thought. Love is not sustained by intensity alone. It's sustained by attention, by noticing the small shifts in mood, by asking questions when something feels different, instead of assuming everything is fine. Have you ever wished someone had asked you one more question, instead of assuming you were okay? I don't want to assume anything with you. I want to ask. I want to listen. I want to understand the parts of you that even your closest friends may never see. The doubts you keep hidden, the insecurities you cover with composure, the quiet moments where you feel time passing, yet still long for something real, something meaningful. Do you ever fear that time might take away your chances for deep love? Or do you believe that love can actually become richer now because it is no longer naive? I believe it can be richer, deeper, more real. But only if we stay brave, only if we don't close ourselves off out of fear. There is one more layer I need to reveal, something I don't often say out loud. Sometimes, I worry that you might think I have too many options, too many distractions, too much noise around me to truly anchor myself to one woman. And I understand how that thought alone could make you step back a little, how it could make you protect your heart, even if you never say it out loud. So let me say this clearly, without hesitation. Depth matters more to me than variety. Stability is stronger than excitement. Loyalty means more than attention. Can you believe that? Can you trust that I am not searching for someone else, when I've already found someone who understands me in a way that is rare? If you truly love me, then let's not be passive with each other. Let's be intentional. Let's speak when something feels fragile. Let's not allow pride to create distance where closeness is still possible. I'm not asking you to promise forever in this moment. I'm asking for something more real, more immediate. I'm asking you to promise presence, to promise honesty, to promise that if doubt ever enters your heart, you will bring it to me, instead of letting it grow quietly in the background. Would you do that for us? Because there is something I need to confess next, something I've carried with me for a long time. Something about how I almost lost someone once, because I assumed love was secure, when in reality, it was slowly slipping away. That memory still follows me. It hasn't faded with time. It hasn't softened the way most things do. It stays with me, as a reminder. There was a time when I believed that once love was spoken, it became safe. That saying "I love you" was enough to hold everything together. That those words carried enough weight to protect what came after them. But I was wrong. Love is not preserved by words. So, it is preserved by attention, by presence, by the small, consistent acts that show someone they are still chosen. And I learned that lesson in a way that still unsettles me. I remember sitting across from someone I cared about deeply. She was calm, too calm. Her voice was steady, her eyes were soft. But there was something missing, something I didn't recognize right away. There was distance in her eyes, not anger, not resentment, just distance, and I didn't see it at first. I told myself she was tired, that maybe she was thinking about something unrelated to us. I convinced myself that everything was fine, because there was no conflict. Have you ever done that? Assumed everything was okay, simply because nothing seemed wrong on the surface. Because conflict is loud, it demands attention. But disconnection is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It slowly grows in the spaces where communication should exist. She told me later that she had felt alone beside me for months, and I didn't notice. Not because I didn't care, but because I was distracted. Distracted by building, by planning, by thinking about the future. While forgetting to nurture the present. I thought having a vision was enough. I thought commitment was obvious. I thought she could feel it without me having to show it in the moment. But I was wrong. Tell me honestly, have you ever felt alone while sitting right next to someone who loved you? That realization changed me. It forced me to face something uncomfortable, something I didn't want to admit at first. Being devoted is not the same as being attentive. You can love someone deeply and still fail to notice their quiet longing. You can believe you're giving everything, while missing the one thing they need most in that moment. Since then, I've asked myself a question, one that I now ask you. If something inside you begins to ache, if something starts to feel off, will you tell me before it becomes too heavy to carry? Or will you convince yourself that you're asking for too much, that your feelings are too much, that your needs are too much, because you are not asking for too much when you ask to be truly seen? End quote, end quote, end quote, end quote. I think about how many women, especially those who have lived full lives, have learned to minimize their needs, to quiet their desires, to become strong, independent, self-sufficient. And you learn to carry everything on your own. You tell yourself you don't need constant reassurance. You don't need to ask for attention. You don't need to depend on anyone. But even the strongest hearts still long to be understood. But beneath that strength, there is still a quiet desire to be prioritized. See. A desire that doesn't always ask loudly but still exists, still waits to be felt. Do you still want to feel prioritized? Truly, deeply prioritized? Because I don't want to repeat my past mistake. I don't want to assume you're content just because you appear composed. I don't want to mistake your strength for silence or your calmness for satisfaction. I want to notice you fully. The way your tone changes slightly when something is left unsaid. One, 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 one. The way your smile lingers just a little longer when you feel safe. The way your silence shifts when something is hurting you, even if you don't speak it. But I can't do this alone. I need you to meet me halfway. If you ever begin to feel overlooked, promise me you won't retreat into quiet endurance. Don't carry it alone. Don't convince yourself it will pass. Instead, promise me you'll say it clearly, honestly. I need you to notice me again. I need you to come closer. Can you promise that? Because there is another truth beneath everything I've shared, something I learned the hard way. When she finally left, she didn't leave with anger. There were no raised voices, no final arguments, no dramatic ending. She left with acceptance. And somehow, that was harder to bear. Because anger can be addressed. Anger means there is still something alive, something reacting, something fighting. But acceptance means she had already let go, long before I realized we were in danger. She had already grieved us, while I was still standing there, believing everything was intact. That experience taught me something I will never forget. Love doesn't end the moment someone walks away. It ends much earlier, when they stop believing that their presence still matters, when they stop feeling that who they are still changes you. So, let me ask you something honestly. Do you believe your presence changes me? Because it does, in ways you may not even realize. The way you listen, without interrupting, without rushing. The way you carry yourself, with quiet maturity, with a calm that doesn't need to prove anything. The way you move thoughtfully, instead of rushing into words or emotions, just for the sake of filling silence. That steadiness, it affects me. It softens me in ways I didn't expect. It makes me more aware, more present, more careful with what truly matters. And yet, even knowing this, there is still a part of me that worries that I might miss something again, and that I might misread your strength as independence, when in reality, you're hoping I'll notice without being told. Tell me, do you want to be asked how you truly feel, even when you say you're fine? Because I'm learning that fine is often not the truth. It's a shield. A quiet way of saying, I don't want to burden you right now. At this stage of life, we don't have time for guessing games. We don't have time for assumptions that slowly create distance. We have time for honesty, for conversations that may feel slightly uncomfortable, but bring us closer in a way silence never could. So let me ask you something gently. When you imagine loving me, long term, what worries you the most? Is it my intensity, the way I think deeply, feel deeply, and sometimes get lost in that depth? Is it my schedule, the way my time is often divided, pulled in different directions? Or is it the fear that I might drift too far into my work and leave you waiting emotionally, even if I'm still physically present? I need to know your fears, just as much as you need to know mine, because love at this stage, it isn't naive anymore. It carries history. It carries lessons. It carries caution, but also wisdom. We know what neglect feels like. We know what emotional distance feels like. We know what it means to sit beside someone and still feel alone. And that knowledge, it shouldn't scare us. It should guide us. It should help us do better, choose better, love better. If you truly love me, don't avoid the difficult conversations. Don't assume I can't handle your truth. I would rather hear something uncomfortable than lose you slowly to silence. There is something about you, something rare, that makes me want to try differently, to love differently, to stay aware of emotional shifts instead of relying on assumptions. But I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, even if only in your heart. If you ever felt yourself pulling away from me emotionally, would you fight for us? Or would you quietly let go, to protect yourself from being hurt again? That choice changes everything. Because I've already lived through a moment where I believed love could survive without effort, without attention, without intention, and I was wrong. I almost lost someone because of that belief. I won't make that mistake again, not with you. And yet, there is still a part of me that questions something deeper. A part of me that wonders if I truly deserve a love that patient, that mature, that intentional. That doubt is something I haven't fully faced before. Beneath everything I've built, everything I've achieved, there is still a part of me that quietly asks. It lies an even quieter vulnerability than the fear of losing you. Something deeper. Something I don't often show. A quiet doubt that has followed me far longer than success, longer than recognition, longer than any relationship I've ever tried to build. It's not dramatic. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It simply appears, in the stillness of night, in those moments when everything slows down, and it asks a single question: am I truly enough for the kind of love I say I want? You see, I've spent much of my life proving things, proving capability, proving intelligence, proving endurance, showing the world that I can build, that I can lead, that I can push through anything placed in front of me. But love, isn't impressed by proof. Love doesn't respond to achievements or outcomes. It doesn't measure worth the way the world does. Love is softened by presence, by attention, by the quiet consistency of being there. And sometimes I wonder, when you're alone at night, when everything around you is quiet, how do you think of us? Do you feel peace, or do you feel uncertainty? Do you ever replay our conversations in your mind? Do you find yourself analyzing the tone, the pauses, the moments between words, wondering if I feel as deeply as you do? Because I truly wish you could see my mind when I think of you. It's not surface level. It's not simple or passing. It's layered, intentional, filled with meaning in ways that are not always easy to express. Every thought carries weight. Every feeling is processed carefully, even if it doesn't always reach the surface immediately. But here's another truth I need you to understand. I'm not always quick to express softness. I don't always speak immediately when I feel something. I process it first. I reflect. I sit with it. I try to understand it fully before I give it words. And by the time I finally speak, you may have already interpreted my quiet as distance. Have you ever misread a moment of silence as someone pulling away, when in reality, they were just trying to feel more deeply before they spoke? That's the space I exist in sometimes, and I don't want it to create confusion between us. So if you've stayed with me this far, if something here feels real to you, something you recognize in your own heart, then don't let this connection end here. Take a moment, press like, subscribe, stay connected so we can keep sharing these moments together, because what we're building here, it deserves to continue.